Howdy fellas, Laxo here again, and today we are going to discuss questions that everybody always has issues with. I've been asked this a million times. Doesn't matter if you are a professional, you've been playing this game for years, or you're literally brand new to this game. What's the one question everyone asks? Hey, does this War Soul work with this character? Or, hey, what War Soul do I run on this character? So today, what we are going to do is we are going to take a look at some War Souls. As you can see here, we have 4 different types of War Souls. We have the actual Soul Hall War Soul. We have the Volatile War Soul. We have this Volatile War Soul, which is actually character War Souls. And then we have the Heroic War Soul. So this video, what we're going to be talking about is we are going to be covering just the damage Volatile War Souls. I'm going to be breaking this War Soul videos down into 4 parts so we can have a nice solid coverage of all the War Souls. So with that being said, feel free to check the description below. I will have all the timestamps listed out for you guys. As you can see here, I have 5 subcategories we're going to be covering today, so we're going to be covering all these categories in the description. That's where timestamps will be. Anyways, let's go ahead and hop right into it here. The first thing we're going to be taking a look at here are the total War Souls here. So total War Souls, you can see right here, if you just click this tab, it gives you War Souls that actually affect your entire account. These War Souls are the War Souls that you actually want to put on characters you usually don't use. That way you can just put them there and forget about them, because these are the War Souls that you don't want to move. You just want to max these War Souls as soon as possible and move on, forget about them, because these War Souls do not affect any kind of battling characters. You put these War Souls in battle, they do not affect it whatsoever. They only affect the characters. They only affect your entire account if you have them on a character. So you specifically want to put these War Souls on specialty characters, because you get that extra 25%. So as you can see here, increase the attack of all allied characters by 6.25%. This will affect every single character on my account. So put this on a character and don't worry about it. But these are the War Souls you specifically want to max. As you can see, I haven't maxed all of them quite enough because it costs a lot to max them. But anyways, the other War Souls we're going to be talking about today are the Volatile War Soul. These are just the passive War Souls. So as you can see over here, I have the first category we're going to be covering is crit. So crit War Souls are pretty much just, as you can see right here, the War Soul of crit. It gives your character just a large chunk of crit and crit strength. And the other War Soul the only other major War Soul we're going to be covering is the War Soul of Wrath, which is also crit chance and damage rate. This is more so of a hybrid, but it'll work either for good crit chance and good damage rate. So this works both ways. So the crit chance War Souls are usually the War Souls that I specifically like to put on. I like to put these War Souls on any kind of skill specialty characters. Why, you may ask? Well, the skill specialty is a counter to the defensive specialty characters, so they already have an extra damage multiplier. So you can go ahead and toss some extra base crit on there to really hit those tanks hard. Also, you'd want to put these types of War Souls on characters that have good pen, like Yoruichi here, for example. She has really good pen, so a crit War Soul on her would be a good idea. I don't have a crit War Soul on her right now, but any kind of those characters that really focus the tanks, the damage, or the tanky characters are War Souls that typically, if they are skill specialty, you really want to put those crit War Souls on them. I know Geen right here, he is more so of a backline, but I did give him crit just so he can really hit the backliners hard. So any of these real skill specialty characters that have really high big bursty damage that can really hurt those tanks are characters you really want to put those crit chance War Souls on. But let's go ahead and check out the other War Souls we have here. Is we have damage percent War Souls. Damage percent War Souls I'm pretty much going to be looking at as, yes, they are going to be the War Soul of Wrath. That is, base damage rate War Soul. However, I also want to include War Souls like the War Souls that give just base damage, like Rage. Extra rage damage. You can see here, attacks deal additional 12.5% damage. Or War Soul of Fury that does, just extra base rage damage. It also does attack, so again, this would be it would hit both categories, but it just does percentage base damage, so damage percent. So these are the these characters are usually the characters that I specifically like to have attack specialty on. They usually hit, like, Byakuya, for example, it hits the entire team. He has really, really high base crit. I believe his base crit is pretty much 100% chance. So I like to put War Souls on him that more so specifically on just increasing his damage rate, because it'll increase everything he does, because he really focuses on increasing attack and damage really, really high, and he has really high base crit. So character like Byakuya, Muramasa, it works kind of well on, but another character is Ichigo. These are the characters you really want to put on because they have really high base crit. They're going to be hitting really hard. Also, backliner attacks are pretty good characters that you want to put these War Souls on. But they have high base crit, so they're going to get those crits, so you really want to put on War Souls like this, for example. Rage attacks deal an extra 25% increased damage, so they're just going to hit and hit really, really hard, especially the dragons that are going to rage first round. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the category 3 here, which is going to be attack damage. So the character that pretty much defines attack damage is Muramasa. Why? Well, his kit is pretty much based off of his attack. As you can see here, he's only one of 2 characters, I believe, in the entire game that have increased base attack percent. So he has an extra, 16% here, and I believe he has the highest overall attack in the game right now. So if I were to put another War Soul that gives him base attack percent, he'd have 152k or 352k base attack damage. So that is absolutely insane. But however, with Muramasa, for example, I put on crit, because this is, for me specifically, if you take a look at his hones, I rolled crit and crit. So I really want to force the crits with him. So I want to make sure when I attack, I am going to crit, because that's where I get all this extra big beefy damage from. So I went ahead and put on the War Soul crit to boost his crit chance up to 83.15. But those are pretty much characters that you want to put, attack damage War Souls on. Also, anything that really affects attack. Another thing that affects attack is Rebellion. It's 180% of his attack is extra damage, and it procs twice, and it only goes up from there. So any character that has really high base attack and has their kit rely on high attack, or those are the characters that you really want to put the attack damage character War Souls on. Moving on, we have the Pen Pierce category. So Pen Pierce are pretty much just the War Souls that do a lot of pen. So these are the characters that really focus front row defense specialty characters down. You really want to put the Pierce, or the Pen Pierce War Souls. As you can see, Pen Pierce War Soul. We have War Soul the Eye. When attacking, there's a 100% chance to ignore 60% of the target's defense. There are miscellaneous other War Souls that do roughly the same thing, but we're going to specifically talk about War Soul the Eye. So Yoruichi, for example here, she attacks one character in the front row. Typically, that's where the really heavy defensive specialty characters are, so she's going to hit that defensive specialty character really hard. So I want to put the War Soul the Eye on there. She also has Pen built into her kit, but with this War Soul, she does do some pretty good damage. And if she does so happen to attack a skill specialty character, she already counters it because she's an attack specialty. So she's a good character that you really want to also put. She works well with Crit or War Soul of the Eye, Pen Pierce. So those are the types of characters that you really want to put the Pen Pierce on that focus the front row. Speaking of front row, we can look at Noel or Eisen, because he focuses the front row. He's going to be hitting all three of those front row damage, or those front row tanky characters. So a character like Eisen might be a character that you actually want to put the high Pen Pierce War Souls on. Also, Noel as well. She attacks our front row. You know, you could toss on those Pen Pierce, and her kit also does some pretty good Pen Pierce as well. So she also works pretty well with Crit. You can put Crit on her and get away with it. But those are the characters that you really want to focus the Pen Pierce on, are the characters that are going to hit those tanky characters 100% of the time. You really want to focus Pen Pierce, War Soul the Eye on those characters. And the last category we have here is the Affix and the Proc. So when we say Affix, when I say Affix, I am referring to characters that have actual affixes, like Nell here, for example. If we go ahead and take a look at her, you know, she pretty much does bleed. That's her entire kit. Is she starts by applying bleed, and she continuously applies stacks of bleed and procs those bleed. So with a character like this is the bleed damage, you know, the affix of bleed. You really want to pump up her bleed damage, so when she hits the enemy and she triggers that bleed, she gets a ton of bleed off. Also, another character that would fit War Soul of Crimson here is, of course, Stark. Stark and Nell are pretty much the two characters that really rely heavily on bleed damage. So War Soul of Crimson, both these characters, these are golden characters to put it on. However, this War Soul, again, is not a only works for that character type of deal, because a character like Nell, if she is running in 1v1, you know, you can toss on War Soul of the Wrath, just because she's going to hit that front row, or she's going to hit that tank, and she's going to do that extra damage. So you could toss on a character like Wrath, you could toss on other War Souls like that on Nell, but more so specifically in 6v6, this is the staple you want to run on Nell, and of course Stark as well. So that is what I'm referring to. Also, bleed damage is directly based on the attack, so having extra attack on there as well is really strong for those characters. But the proc chance, so when we talk about proc, we are talking about characters that have that they apply debuffs, or they apply certain things to the enemies, like stun, freeze, disorient, anything like that. Any of those characters you really want to apply, you really want to put on War Souls, like War Soul the Shattering, for example, because why? It affects the effect accuracy, so it has the higher chance of applying those major debuffs to the actual enemy. So if we look at his kit, we can see here there's multiple instances of applying freeze to the enemy, multiple chances. So you really want to buff up Hyoden Maru's actual chance of applying freeze or frozen, for example. Also, another character is Yamamoto. Yamamoto not only applies a stun, but he also applies rage reduction as well. Also, rage reduction units fit in really, really well with the proc War Souls. So any chance of applying this or a chance of doing that are characters typically you want to run War Soul Shattering on, because it's really, really, really going to make that character or unit a lot more effective. So as I said, a perfect example, you could toss on War Soul Shattering on Yamamoto, and not only is he going to have a higher chance of stunning the enemy, but he's also going to have a higher chance of reducing the rage of the enemy as well. So those are the really major volatile damage War Souls I wanted to cover. There are, once again, other miscellaneous War Souls that we can take a look at here. We have War Soul the Crippling. That's also like, a damage. It has a chance of doing more damage. So any kind of damage amplifying units, as you can see, Sogyo here, I go ahead and toss on Crippling on Sogyo. Why? Because Sogyo does damage to every enemy when they're hit, so it does bonus damage on top of it. So War Soul Crippling is not a War Soul you want to have a lot of, usually one, maybe two. Don't really want to go too crazy with War Soul Crippling. But that is actually going to do it for this part 1 of the video. The next part you guys can look forward to is part 2. As you can see here, I already have the subcategories listed 1 through 5. I'm going to be covering the defensive volatile War Souls. But one more thing is, if you take a look here at my notes, I have this little note right here saying try to have 20/20 of volatile War Souls. The reason why I say that is because in like World Championship, for example, you have 7 teams of 6, so 42. So you want 42 volatile War Souls, typically 20 defense, 20 attack type War Souls to put on those, to put on all 7 of your teams to really get, the highest chance of winning. And I haven't mentioned it yet, but War Souls pretty much, your team lives and dies with the War Souls you have on them. So you really, really, really want to make sure you have the right War Souls on characters, especially if you really want them to do specific things. So yep, that's actually going to do it for this one, guys. Once again, look forward to the next couple days. Maybe I'll have the defensive volatile War Soul videos coming out. So keep an eye open for that. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, want to get a hold of me, feel free to join my Discord. The link will be in the description as well. You can hop over there and hang out with the community, talk to me, ask any questions, anything like that. We'd love to talk. But guys, that's going to do it for this one. And, yep, catch you on the next one.